The wind screamed like a wounded animal across the frozen mountains. Snow fell so thick that a man could not see his own hand if he held it in front of his face. The temperature had dropped far below what any living thing could survive outside. This was the worst blizzard the colony world of 7 had seen in 50 years. Ho sat alone in his small hut, watching the fire dance in his old iron stove. The orange light painted shadows on the wooden walls. He was a quiet man of 32 years, with a kind face and tired eyes. He had come to this frozen world 5 years ago to work as a weather monitor for the colony. His job was simple. He lived in this remote outpost on the mountain and sent weather data to the main colony city far below. It was lonely work. The nearest human was 200 kilometers away, but Ho did not mind. He liked the silence. He liked the snow. He liked being alone with his thoughts and his books and his small radio that sometimes played old songs from Earth. The hut shook as another powerful gust of wind struck it. Ho pulled his thick wool blanket around his shoulders. He had enough food and firewood to last many weeks. He was safe. He just had to wait for the storm to pass. He was about to make himself some tea when he heard something strange. At first, he thought it was just the wind playing tricks, but then he heard it again. A scratching sound. It came from his door. Ho stood up slowly. His heart beat a little faster. There were no animals on this part of the mountain. Nothing could survive outside in this storm, so what was making that sound? The scratching came again, weaker this time. Then he heard something else, a voice. It was faint and desperate. Someone was out there. Ho moved quickly. He grabbed his thick coat and put it on. Then he went to the door and pulled it open. The cold hit him like a punch to the chest. Snow and wind rushed into the hut. He squinted his eyes against the white fury of the blizzard. At first he saw nothing, then he looked down. A figure lay crumpled on the ground just outside his door. It was a woman, but she was not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost like ice itself. Her hair was long and silver, now tangled and frozen. She wore thin clothes that offered no protection against the cold. Her body shook with violent trembles. She looked up at him with eyes that glowed a soft purple. Those eyes were filled with fear, pure, deep fear. She tried to speak, but only a weak sound came from her blue lips. Ho did not hesitate. He reached down and scooped her up in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her body was so cold that he could feel it through his coat and gloves. He carried her inside and kicked the door shut behind him. The wind howled in anger outside, as if upset that he had stolen its prey. Ho laid the alien woman on his bed, the only bed in the small hut. She curled into a ball, still shaking. Her purple eyes were wide and wild. She looked at him the way a trapped animal looks at a hunter. "It is okay," Ho said softly. "You are safe now." She did not seem to understand, or maybe she did not believe him. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to get as far from him as possible. A small whimper escaped her throat. Ho stepped back. He held up his hands to show they were empty. "I will not hurt you," he said. "I promise." He moved slowly to his storage chest and pulled out more blankets. They were old but clean and very warm. He approached her carefully, the way one might approach a frightened bird. Her body tensed. Her breathing quickened. "Blankets," he said, holding them up for her to see. "You need to get warm." He placed them on the bed beside her, then stepped back again. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, her shaking hands reached out and pulled the blankets over her body. She wrapped herself in them tightly, her teeth chattering. Ho went to his stove and added more wood. The fire grew stronger, pushing more heat into the small room. Then he put water on to boil. He moved quietly, always keeping his movements slow and visible. He did not want to scare her more than she already was. He knew what she was. He had heard stories about an alien species that lived on a planet several star systems away. They were said to be a peaceful people, known for their beautiful music and their fear of other species. They believed that humans were dangerous. They believed that humans were conquerors who destroyed everything they touched. Ho did not know why this woman was on 7. He did not know how she had found his hut in the middle of a deadly blizzard, but none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that she was freezing and terrified. The water boiled. Ho made a simple soup from dried vegetables and meat. The smell filled the hut. He poured the soup into a bowl and carried it to the bed. The woman watched his every move. Her purple eyes tracked him like he was a predator circling closer. When he held out the bowl, she flinched. "Food," Ho said gently. "Hot, it will help you feel better." She stared at the bowl, then she stared at him. He could see the conflict in her eyes. She was hungry. She was cold, but she was so afraid. Ho set the bowl on a small table beside the bed. Then he walked to the other side of the room and sat down on a wooden chair. He picked up a book and pretended to read, giving her space. Minutes passed. The storm continued to rage outside. The fire crackled warmly. Finally, Ho heard a small sound. He glanced up and saw that she had taken the bowl. She held it in both hands, drinking the soup slowly. Her eyes never left him. When the bowl was empty, she set it down. Some color had returned to her face. The violent shaking had slowed to small trembles. "My name is Ho," he said softly. She did not answer. She just pulled the blankets and curled up on the bed. Within minutes, her eyes closed. Exhaustion had taken her. Ho watched her sleep for a moment. Then he turned back to his book. Outside, the blizzard screamed and raged. But inside the small hut, there was only warmth and the soft sound of breathing. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know why she was here or what she was running from. But tonight, she was safe. Tonight, she would not die in the cold. That was enough. The woman woke to the sound of crackling fire. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Her mind was foggy and confused. Then memory rushed back like cold water and her eyes snapped open. She was in a human dwelling. She was in the home of one of them. Her name was Vila. She was 26 cycles old, which was young for her people. Back on her home world, she had been a pilot, a good one. She had flown cargo ships between planets, carrying supplies and medicine to colonies that needed them. It was honest work, and she had been proud of it. But then her ship had been damaged during a meteor storm. Her navigation system had failed. She had drifted for days before crashing on this frozen world. She had walked through the snow for hours, searching for help, until the blizzard came and stole all hope from her heart. She had been certain she would die. Then she had seen the light from this hut. She had crawled to the door with the last of her strength, and a human had opened it. Now she lay very still under the warm blankets, watching the human called Ho. He sat on the other side of the room near the fire. He was cooking something in a pan. The smell made her stomach hurt with hunger, but she did not move. She had grown up hearing stories about humans, terrible stories. Her parents had told her that humans were violent creatures who spread across the stars like a disease. They took what they wanted. They destroyed what they did not understand. They had fought wars with many species and won them all through brutality and aggression. "Never trust a human," her mother had always said. "They smile while they sharpen their knives." Vila believed those stories. Every did. Humans were monsters wearing friendly faces. This Ho, was probably no different. He had saved her for some dark reason. Soon he would show his true nature. Ho looked up and saw that she was awake. He smiled gently. "Good morning," he said. "The storm is still going. Are you hungry?" Vila did not answer. She pressed her back against the wall and pulled the blankets up to her chin. Her heart was beating fast. Ho's smile faded a little, but he did not seem angry. He turned back to his cooking and put food onto 2 plates. One plate was piled high with meat and vegetables. The other had less. He carried the fuller plate to her and set it on the small table beside the bed. Then he took the other plate for himself and sat down in his chair across the room. "Eat," he said. "You need your strength." Vila stared at the food. It smelled wonderful, But what if it was poisoned? What if this was a trick? Ho noticed her hesitation. He picked up a piece of meat from her plate with his own fork and ate it. Then he shrugged. See, safe. Vila waited several minutes. When Ho did not collapse or show signs of sickness, she finally reached for the food. She ate quickly, almost desperately. She had not realized how hungry she was. While she ate, Ho spoke in a calm, quiet voice. I have a radio, he said. I tried to contact the main colony last night, but the storm is blocking all signals. When the blizzard ends, I can call for help. They can send a transport to take you somewhere safe. Vila stopped eating. Somewhere safe. There was nowhere safe for her on a human world, but she did not say this. She just watched him with suspicious eyes. Until then, Ho continued, you can stay here. There is plenty of food and firewood. The hut is small, but it is warm. Vila finally spoke. Her voice was rough and weak. Why? Ho looked at her with a puzzled expression. Why what? Why help me? Why save me? You are human. I am. Our peoples are not friends. Ho was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his plate, then back at her. You were dying, he said simply. You needed help. What else was I supposed to do? Leave you to freeze? Vila did not understand. This made no sense. Humans did not help others without wanting something in return. That was what she had always been taught. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Ho's eyes widened. He looked almost hurt by the question. I do not want anything from you, he said. I just want to help you survive the storm. That is all. Vila did not believe him. She could not believe him. There had to be a trick. There had to be a hidden purpose. She stayed tense and alert, waiting for his true intentions to reveal themselves. The day passed slowly. Outside, the blizzard continued to rage. Inside, Ho went about his daily work. He checked his weather instruments. He wrote in a notebook. He added wood to the fire when it got low. He read from a small book with a worn cover. He did not bother Vila. He did not come close to her unless he was bringing food or water. He did not ask her questions or demand anything. He just left her alone to rest. This confused Vila greatly. She watched his every movement, waiting for the moment when he would change, when the kind mask would fall away and the monster beneath would appear. But it did not happen. In the afternoon, Ho heated water and poured it into a basin. He carried the basin to her along with a clean cloth. For washing, he said, if you want, I will turn away. True to his word, he turned his back and walked to the far corner of the room. He faced the wall and waited. Vila stared at his back. He was completely vulnerable. If she wanted to attack him, this would be the perfect moment. But she was too weak and she had no weapon. Besides, attacking him would be foolish. He was her only source of food and warmth. She washed her face and hands quickly. The warm water felt wonderful on her skin. When she was done, she said, finished. Ho turned around and took the basin away. He poured out the dirty water and cleaned the basin. He did not look at her with any strange desire. He did not say anything cruel or threatening. He just put the basin away and returned to his chair. Your hands, he said, looking at her with concern. Let me see them. Vila hesitated. Then she slowly pulled her hands out from under the blankets. Her fingers were discolored. The tips had turned a dark purple, almost black. Frostbite. Ho made a soft sound of sympathy. He got up and retrieved a small box from his storage chest. Inside were bandages and medicine. May I? He asked, gesturing toward her hands. Vila's instinct was to refuse, to pull away. But the pain in her fingers was growing worse, and she knew that frostbite could cause permanent damage. Slowly, she nodded. Ho sat on the edge of the bed, keeping a respectful distance. He took her hands in his with incredible gentleness. His touch was warm and soft. He examined her fingers carefully, then applied medicine to the damaged areas. The medicine was cold at first, then warm. The pain began to ease. This should help, Ho said as he wrapped bandages around her fingers. but you will need proper medical care when we reach the colony." He finished his work and released her hands. Then he stood up and returned to his chair without any further contact. Vila looked at her bandaged hands. Then she looked at Ho. He was reading his book again, paying her no special attention. Something inside her chest felt strange. It was a small crack in the wall of fear she had built around her heart, just a tiny crack, but it was there. She still did not trust him. She still expected him to reveal his true nature at any moment. But for the first time, a small voice in her mind whispered a question she had never asked before. What if the stories were wrong? She pushed the thought away. It was dangerous thinking. Humans were monsters, everyone knew that. This one was simply playing a longer game. But as night fell and Ho gave her his bed while he slept on the cold floor, Vila found herself less certain of what she knew. The storm howled outside, but inside there was only warmth and kindness from a human who wanted nothing in return. Sleep came slowly that night, and for the first time her dreams were not filled with fear. 3 days passed. The blizzard showed no sign of stopping. Snow piled higher and higher against the walls of the small hut. The wind continued to scream across the frozen mountains, but inside, life had found a quiet rhythm. Vila was getting stronger. The color had returned to her skin, which was now a healthier shade of light blue. Her fingers were healing well under the bandages. She could move around the hut now, though she still tired easily. Ho continued to treat her with the same gentle kindness he had shown from the beginning. He gave her food. He gave her medicine. He gave her space. He never raised his voice. He never made demands. He never looked at her with anything other than friendly concern. It was driving Vila mad. She had spent her whole life being taught that humans were evil, that they were selfish and cruel, that they only pretended to be nice so they could take advantage of others. But Ho was none of these things. Day after day, he proved the stories wrong. On the 4th morning, Vila finally broke her silence. "Tell me about yourself," she said. Ho looked up from his breakfast with surprise. These were the first words she had spoken to him in 2 days. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Anything, everything. Why are you here? Why do you live alone on this frozen mountain?" Ho smiled sadly. He set down his fork and leaned back in his chair. "That is a long story," he said. "We have time," Vila replied, gesturing at the window where snow still fell thick and heavy. Ho nodded. He was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Then he began to speak. "I grew up on Earth," he said, "in a small city by the sea. My family was poor, but we were happy. My mother was a teacher. My father was a fisherman. I had a younger sister named Bai." His voice became softer when he mentioned his sister. There was pain there, hidden just beneath the surface. "When I was 20, a plague came to our city. It spread fast. There was no cure. My mother died first, then my father, then Bai." He paused, staring at his hands. "I survived. I do not know why. Many people died and I survived. It did not seem fair." Vila listened in silence. She had not expected this. She had not expected him to share something so personal and painful. "After the plague ended, I could not stay in that city," Ho continued. "Everything reminded me of what I had lost, so I left Earth. I traveled from planet to planet, taking whatever work I could find. Eventually, I came here, to 7. They needed someone to live on this mountain and monitor the weather. No one else wanted the job. It was too lonely, they said, too cold, too far from everything." He smiled a little. "But I wanted lonely. I wanted cold. I wanted to be far from everything, so I took the job. That was 5 years ago." Vila processed this information. The human had suffered great loss. He had watched his entire family die, and instead of becoming angry or violent, he had chosen solitude and quiet work. "Do you not get lonely?" she asked. Ho thought about the question. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I have my books, I have my radio, and sometimes I have unexpected visitors." He smiled at her gently. Vila felt her cheeks grow warm. She looked away quickly. This was confusing. She should not be feeling warmth toward a human. She should be afraid. She should be suspicious. But she was not anymore. "I am sorry about your family," she said quietly. Ho nodded. "Thank you. It was a long time ago. The pain has faded, but I will always carry it with me. It is part of who I am now." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The fire crackled. The storm raged outside. But inside the small hut something had changed between them. A wall had come down. In the afternoon, Vila asked if she could help with anything. She was tired of lying in bed doing nothing. Ho seemed surprised but pleased by the offer. "Can you cook?" he asked. Vila shook her head. "Food is very different from human food. We eat mostly plants and algae, but I can learn." So Ho taught her how to make a simple human dish. It was called soup, though it was different from the soup he had given her on that first night. This soup had noodles in it, long thin strings made from wheat. Ho showed her how to boil the water, how to add the noodles, how to put in vegetables and spices for flavor. Vila watched carefully and followed his instructions. When the soup was ready, they ate together at the small table. It was the first time Vila had not eaten alone in the corner, watching Ho from a distance. "This is good," Ho said, tasting her soup. "You are a fast learner." Vila felt a small glow of pride. "It is just following instructions," she said. "Not difficult." "Many things are easy when you know how," Ho replied. "But that does not make the doing less valuable." After lunch, Ho showed her his weather instruments. There were machines that measured temperature, wind speed, humidity, and air pressure. There were screens that displayed complicated charts and graphs. Vila did not understand most of it, but she found it fascinating. "All this data gets sent to the main colony," Ho explained. "They use it to predict storms, plan farming seasons, and keep people safe. It is not exciting work, but it is important." Vila looked at him with new eyes. This human had chosen to spend his life doing small, quiet work that helped others. He lived alone on a frozen mountain so that people far away could be warned about bad weather. There was no glory in it, no reward, just service. "You are a strange human," Vila said. Ho laughed. It was a warm sound that filled the small hut. "I have been called worse things," he said. That night Ho did something he had not done before. He took out a small instrument from his storage chest. It was a guitar, old and well used, with scratches on its wooden body. "Do you mind if I play?" he asked. "I have not played since you arrived. I did not want to disturb you." Vila shook her head. "Please, I would like to hear." Ho sat by the fire and began to play. The music that came from the guitar was soft and sad and beautiful. His fingers moved across the strings with practiced ease, creating melodies that seemed to speak directly to the heart. Vila listened with her eyes closed. Music was very important to her people were known throughout the galaxy for their songs, but she had never heard human music before. She had been told it was harsh and ugly, like the humans themselves. This music was neither harsh nor ugly. It was full of longing and hope and sorrow and love. It was the music of someone who had known pain but had not let that pain make them bitter. When Ho finished playing, Vila opened her eyes. There were tears on her cheeks. She had not realized she was crying. "That was beautiful," she whispered. Ho put down the guitar. "It was my mother's favorite song," he said. "She used to sing it to me when I was a child. On nights when the sea was rough and my father was out fishing, she would hold me and sing this song until I fell asleep." Vila wiped her eyes. Something inside her had broken open. All the walls she had built, all the fear and suspicion she had carried with her, crumbled away like snow in spring. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. "I was wrong about all of it, the stories my people tell about humans. They are not true, at least they are not true about you." Ho looked at her with kind eyes. "I cannot speak for all humans," he said. "We are many and we are different. Some of us are cruel, some of us are kind. Most of us are somewhere in between, but I believe that inside every person there is a choice. A choice to help or to harm, a choice to love or to hate. I try to choose kindness whenever I can. Vila nodded slowly. She understood now. Humans were not all monsters. They were just people like anyone else. Capable of great evil, yes, but also capable of great good. She looked at Ho, this quiet man who had saved her life, and asked for nothing in return. For the first time since arriving on this frozen world, she felt something she had not expected. She felt safe. The storm continued outside, but Vila no longer noticed it. She was too busy listening to Ho play another song, one that spoke of distant shores and endless stars and the hope that someday everyone would find their way home. On the fifth day, something changed. The wind began to slow. The snow fell less heavily. The terrible howling that had filled the air for days finally began to quiet. The blizzard was dying. Ho stood at the window, watching the sky with careful eyes. "Another day or two," he said. "Then it should be clear enough to contact the colony." Vila sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets. She should have felt happy at this news. She should have been eager to leave this small hut and return to civilization. But instead, she felt a strange heaviness in her chest, something like sadness. She did not want to leave. The realization surprised her. A week ago, she had been terrified of this human. She had expected cruelty and violence. She had waited for his kindness to reveal itself as a trick, but none of that had happened. Instead, she had found something she had never expected to find among humans. She had found a friend. Over the past few days, Vila and Ho had talked for hours. They had shared stories about their worlds, their families, their dreams. Ho had told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests and crowded cities. Vila had told him about her home world, about the crystal caves and singing rivers and the great silver trees that grew toward twin moons. They had discovered that despite being from different species, different worlds, different cultures, they were not so different after all. They both loved music. They both valued quiet moments of peace. They both carried wounds from the past that would never fully heal. "What will you do when you leave here?" Ho asked, turning away from the window. Vila thought about the question. "I do not know," she admitted. "My ship is destroyed. I have no way to return to my home world. I suppose I will have to stay on 7 until I can find passage on another vessel." "That could take a long time," Ho said. "Ships do not come to this colony often, and ships come even less." Vila nodded. She had already considered this problem. She was stranded on a human world with no money, no ship, and no connections. The future looked uncertain and frightening. "You could stay here," Ho said quietly. Vila looked up at him sharply. "What?" Ho's cheeks turned slightly red. He looked away, suddenly awkward. "I mean, if you want. The hut is small, but there is room for two. You could help me with my work. I could teach you more about weather monitoring, and when a ship finally comes, you could leave then." Vila was silent for a long moment. The offer was unexpected. It was generous beyond anything she could have imagined. A human was inviting her to share his home. Such a thing would have seemed impossible just days ago. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for me?" Ho finally met her eyes. There was warmth there and something else, something deeper. "Because I do not want you to go," he said simply. "These past few days, talking with you, sharing meals with you, I had forgotten what it was like to have company, to have a friend. I have been alone for so long, and now that I remember what it feels like to not be alone, I am not ready to give it up." Vila felt her heart beating faster. She understood what he was saying because she felt the same way. The thought of leaving this hut, of never seeing Ho again, filled her with a sadness she could not explain. "My people would not understand," she said softly. "If they knew I had lived with a human, they would think I had lost my mind. They might never accept me again." "Is that what you believe?" Ho asked. "That living with a human makes you less?" Vila shook her head slowly. "No, not anymore, but I used to believe it. I used to believe everything they told me about your kind, that you were violent, that you were cruel, that you could not be trusted." She paused, gathering her courage. "I was wrong, and I want my people to know the truth." Ho listened carefully, not interrupting. "For generations they have feared humans," Vila continued. "We have avoided your worlds, refused your offers of friendship, closed our borders to your ships. We have let fear control us. But fear built on lies is not protection. It is a prison." She stood up and walked to where Ho sat. She looked down at him, this human who had saved her life, and opened her eyes to a new truth. "I will stay," she said. "For a while at least, but not forever, because someday I need to return to my people. I need to tell them what I have learned. I need to tell them about you." Ho smiled. It was a smile full of warmth and gratitude. "I would like that," he said. "I would like to know that humans are not all monsters, just as I now know that they are not all cold and distant, as my people sometimes say." Vila sat down beside him. For a moment neither of them spoke. They just sat together, watching the fire dance in the stove, listening to the wind slowly dying outside. "Tell me more about your sister," Vila said finally. What was she like?" Ho's eyes grew distant, lost in memory. "She was bright," he said, "like a flame that could not be put out. She laughed at everything, even things that were not funny. She had this way of making everyone around her feel special, like they were the most important person in the world." His voice trembled slightly. "She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. She wanted to help people, to heal them, but she never got the chance." Vila reached out and took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him by choice. His hand was warm and rough from work. She held it gently. "She would be proud of you," Vila said. "The way you helped me, the way you chose kindness when you could have chosen fear, she would be proud." Ho looked at their joined hands. A single tear rolled down his cheek, but he was smiling. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for saying that." They sat together for a long time, holding hands, watching the fire. Outside, the last of the blizzard faded into silence. The world was white and still and peaceful. That night, Vila made dinner for both of them. She had learned enough to prepare a simple meal of rice and vegetables. It was not as good as what Ho made, but he ate every bite and thanked her warmly. After dinner, Ho played his guitar again. But this time, Vila joined him. She sang a song, one that her mother had taught her as a child. Her voice was high and clear and beautiful, weaving through the guitar's melody like silver thread through gold. When the song ended, Ho looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "That was incredible," he said. "I have never heard anything like it." Vila smiled. "It is a song about stars," she said, "about how they watch over us, even when we feel alone. My mother used to sing it to me when I was afraid of the dark." Ho nodded. "Our mothers were wise," he said. "They knew that the best way to fight fear is with beauty." Vila looked at the human sitting across from her. She thought about everything that had happened since she crashed on this frozen world. She thought about her fear, her suspicion, her gradual awakening to the truth. "I am glad my ship crashed here," she said suddenly. Ho raised an eyebrow. "That is an unusual thing to be glad about." "I know," Vila admitted. "But if my ship had not crashed, I would never have met you. I would have spent my whole life believing lies about humans. I would never have known that kindness exists in places I did not expect to find it." She looked into his eyes. "Meeting you has changed me, Ho. I am not the same person who crawled to your door freezing and afraid. I am better now, because of you." Ho reached out and took her hand again. "We changed each other," he said. "I had forgotten how to connect with another person. I had built walls around my heart and thought I was protecting myself. But walls keep out the good things too, not just the bad. You reminded me of that." The fire burned low. The night deepened around them, but neither of them felt cold. Tomorrow they would try to contact the colony. Tomorrow the outside world would enter their small sanctuary once again. But tonight they had each other. And that was enough. Vila fell asleep holding Ho's hand, and for the first time in years she did not dream of fear. She dreamed of stars watching over her, telling her that everything would be all right. The morning of the seventh day came with something Vila had almost forgotten existed. Sunlight. Real, golden sunlight streaming through the window of the small hut, painting everything in warm colors. The blizzard was over. Vila woke slowly, blinking against the brightness. She sat up in bed and looked around. Ho was already awake, standing at his radio equipment with a look of concentration on his face. "The signals are getting through," he said, noticing she was awake. "I am trying to reach the main colony." Vila wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and walked to stand beside him. Through the window, she could see the mountains stretched out before them, covered in pristine white snow that sparkled like diamonds under the sun. It was beautiful. After days of gray skis and howling wind, the world seemed reborn. The radio crackled. A voice came through, scratchy but clear. "Mountain Outpost, this is Colony Central. We hear you. Report your status." Ho picked up the microphone. "Colony Central, this is Ho at the Mountain Outpost. I have a visitor here. A woman. Her ship crashed during the storm. She needs medical attention for frostbite and transport when possible." There was a long pause. When the voice came back, it sounded surprised. Did you say, Confirmed," Ho said. "She has been sheltering with me for a week. She is safe and recovering well." Another pause. Then the voice said, "Understood. We will send a transport as soon as conditions allow. Weather looks clear. Estimate arrival in 4 hours. Colony Central out." The radio went silent. Vila and Ho looked at each other. 4 hours. In 4 hours a transport would arrive. In 4 hours Vila would leave this hut. "How do you feel?" Ho asked gently. Vila thought about the question. "Strange," she admitted. "I should be happy. I am alive. I survived the crash and the blizzard. I am going to be rescued. But, Ho prompted. "But I do not want to say goodbye to you." Ho smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "This does not have to be goodbye forever," he said. "The colony is only 200 kilometers away. When you are settled, you could visit, and I could visit you." Vila nodded, but she knew it would not be the same. The world outside this hut was complicated. Humans and did not mix. People would ask questions. They would judge. The simple friendship they had built here would be tested by the reality of two species who had avoided each other for generations. But that was a problem for later. Right now, they still had 4 hours together. They spent the morning packing Vila's few belongings and preparing for her departure. Ho gave her a thick coat from his own supply, since her thin clothes would not protect her on the journey. He also gave her a scarf that his mother had made, soft and warm and faded with age. "I cannot take this," Vila protested. "It belonged to your mother." "She would have wanted you to have it," Ho said firmly. "She was a kind woman. She would have liked you." Vila held the scarf in her hands, feeling its warmth. Her eyes grew wet with tears she refused to let fall. "Thank you," she whispered. As midday approached, they heard a sound in the distance, the low hum of engines. Vila went to the window and saw a transport vessel approaching over the mountains. It was a small ship designed for short trips, human-built. "They are here," she said. Ho joined her at the window. They watched the transport land in the snow a short distance from the hut. The engines quieted. A door opened, and 2 humans in heavy coats stepped out. It was time. Vila turned to face Ho. There was so much she wanted to say, so much she felt but did not have words for. In the end, she simply stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him in a hug. Ho hugged her back tightly. They stood like that for a long moment, saying with their embrace what they could not say with words. "I will tell them," Vila whispered into his shoulder. "I will tell my people about you, about what you did, about who you are. I will tell them that not all humans are what we feared. I will tell them that kindness exists in every species if we are willing to look for it." And I will tell anyone who asks, Ho replied, that they are not cold or distant, that they are capable of great warmth and courage, that a woman became my friend in the middle of a blizzard, and that she changed my life. They separated slowly. Vila wiped her eyes. Ho did the same. Do not be a stranger, he said. Vila laughed softly. I do not think I could be a stranger to you now, even if I tried. She walked to the door, pulled it open, and stepped outside. The cold air hit her face, but the sun was warm on her skin. She took a deep breath and started walking toward the transport. Halfway there, she stopped and looked back. Ho stood in the doorway of his hut, watching her go. He raised a hand in farewell. Vila raised her hand in return. Then she turned and continued walking. The two humans from the transport looked at her with curiosity but not hostility. One of them, a woman with short dark hair, smiled and said, Welcome. My name is Jin. I am a medic. Let me check your hands. Vila allowed the woman to examine her bandaged fingers. The medic nodded approvingly. Good work on the treatment, she said. Your friend took good care of you. Yes, Vila agreed softly. He did. They boarded the transport. As the engines hummed to life and the ship rose into the air, Vila pressed her face to the window. She watched the small hut grow smaller and smaller below them. She watched until it was just a tiny dot on the vast white mountainside. She watched until she could not see it anymore. But she kept watching anyway. The transport carried her to Colony Central, a sprawling settlement in a valley far below the mountains. There were thousands of humans here, living and working and building their lives on this frozen world. Vila was taken to a medical facility where doctors treated her frostbite with advanced technology. They said her fingers would heal completely. In the days that followed, Vila became something of a curiosity, a living among humans. People stared at her, some with fear, some with wonder, some with simple curiosity. But no one was cruel. No one threatened her. When she needed help, humans offered it freely. She thought of Ho often. She thought of his quiet kindness, his gentle voice, his sad songs on the guitar. She thought of how wrong she had been about everything. After 2 weeks in the colony, Vila found a communication station. She used it to send a message to her home world. The message was long. It described her crash, her rescue, her time in the human's hut. It described Ho and his kindness. It described what she had learned about humans. At the end of the message, she wrote words that she knew would shock her people. We have been wrong about them. We have let fear guide us for too long. Humans are not monsters. They are people just like us. Some are cruel, yes, but some are good. Some are capable of kindness that puts our own to shame. I have met such a human. He saved my life and asked for nothing in return. He gave me warmth when I had only known cold. He gave me friendship when I expected only hatred. If we close ourselves off from such people, we lose more than we protect. It is time for them to open our eyes and our hearts. It is time to stop being afraid. She sent the message and waited. 3 months later, a ship arrived at 7. It was the first ship to visit a human colony in over 50 years. On board were diplomats, scientists, and curious citizens who had heard about the blue-skinned woman who had lived with a human and survived. Vila met them at the landing zone. She was no longer the frightened, freezing woman who had crashed on this world. She was strong now, confident. Her eyes held a light that had not been there before. And standing beside her, tall and quiet with kind eyes, was Ho. He had come down from his mountain to meet the ship. He had wanted to see this moment, the moment when two peoples began to see each other clearly for the first time. The diplomats approached slowly, uncertainty in their eyes. Vila stepped forward to greet them. Behind her, Ho offered a small bow of respect. One of the diplomats, an older woman with silver hair and wise eyes, looked from Vila to Ho and back again. "Is this him?" she asked, "the human who saved you?" Vila nodded. "This is Ho, he is my friend." The old woman studied Ho for a long moment. Then, slowly, she extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Ho took her hand and shook it gently. "Thank you," the old woman said, "for showing kindness to one of our own. Perhaps we have more to learn about your people than we thought." Ho smiled his quiet smile. "And perhaps we have more to learn about yours," he replied. Above them, the sun shone down on a world of ice and snow. But standing there together, human and the future felt warm with possibility. The blizzard was over, the fear was fading, and in its place something new was beginning. Something that looked a lot like hope.